Hello, my name is Christina Winquist from Capgemini. Thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar entitled Mobile BI Strategy. Your presenter will be Marty Mersinger, Senior Solution Engineer of BI and Data Warehousing, and he's been with BICG and now Capgemini for over 15 years. Marty will provide an overview of how organizations can leverage the functionality available in OBIEE 11G to help them define their mobile strategy. Mobile BI strategy. A little about the flow of today's presentation. Marty will present for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then we'll have time for a brief Q&A session. We encourage you to ask questions, and they can be submitted anytime through the question panel on your control panel. Also, please be sure and stay until the end of our webinar, as we'll be giving away free training tokens to 2 lucky attendees. Without further ado, let's begin today's presentation, and with that, I'll hand it over to Marty.
All right, thank you, Christina. Welcome, everyone, to another of our webinars in our series. And as Christina said, this is on the mobile BI strategy. My name, again, is Marty Mersinger. I am a solution engineer with BICG Capgemini. So we'll get right into this. So what we're going to look at is some of the past and presents around the mobile BI. What are mobile apps? The ADF mobile, we'll go into what exactly that is, how that works. Some BI extensions, and why are those important in a mobile environment. Then look at mobile strategy, as well as mobile security, and then have some time for Q&A. So first, let's look at some past and present. What we want to think of here is, how were we leveraging mobile before, or were we? So in the past, mobile was primarily had very limited usage in relation to OBIEE. And was primarily used in conjunction with iBots for delivery alerts purposes and for email notifications. Other than that, you really did not have any kind of reporting aspect other than to get those alerts or notifications and then tell you to go to your email or go to your dashboard page to see the actual report itself. Today, we've got the mobile BI app that runs on your iPad or iPhone, which is put out by Oracle. And so when we're talking about mobile apps, this is the first thing that most people think of is the app that's readily available and downloadable. And that's key. Keep that in mind, that this is a downloadable app because there's other options that we're going to see and get a better feel for what's available to us. So if you were thinking that, this was going to be another one of those demonstrations of the Oracle iPad mobile app, you're wrong on that count. I'm not going to show that. There's a number of good videos out there that you can see, both on YouTube as well as Oracle Media has one that can demonstrate what that mobile app is all about and how it's used. So you can get a feel for that. So I'm not going to repeat that information. I think a lot of people have seen that as well anyway. Especially if you've seen it at Oracle Open World, you would have seen it out there as well. So let's look into what is BI. Contrary to popular belief, BI does not stand for Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. So we need to look beyond just that aspect. What it does stand for is business intelligence. So why is that important? What does that mean from a mobile perspective? All right. What we're talking about is BI data is not just limited to what you have in the data warehouse. Remember, we're talking about a mobile app, and if we can connect up to information, then we can leverage that information within a mobile app. So BI data can exist truly anywhere. Give you, for instance, Oracle SOA Suite has an EBS adapter via people that you can leverage and build within a mobile application. So here you can use your EBS data directly within a mobile app. There's a number of examples that Oracle has put out in relation to this, which allows you to basically enter transactional information, update, and see transactional information directly from your mobile application. So let's look, what do we talk about mobile apps, what do we actually mean? All right? There's actually two types of mobile applications. The first one is the mobile client. This is what the Oracle iPad application is a mobile client. The other one is a mobile browser. So those are the two types that we're going to be talking about. The mobile client basically runs on the device using native UI components. The data is available in an offline mode, which means you're basically downloading that as long as you've got the ability and you're not overloading your system. But it does take longer for you to develop because, and we'll see some of the aspects around developing from the mobile client. And originally this was only geared for BlackBerry and Windows mobile devices. Now what you're seeing is with the iPad and iPhone support as well. With the mobile browser, the application runs within the native browser of the device, whether or not this is a smartphone, the iPad, or a tablet. And I say tablet because now I'm including other things other than just the iPad. The browser is also quicker to develop. So it doesn't take as much to put one out, plus it's easier to deploy. There is no downloading of anything that's necessary. The browser app will also utilize JSF components when you're creating your pages. We'll see a little bit of that in the demonstration. Besides that, we also go into the ADF. The ADF, for those who don't know it, is the Application Development Framework. This is what OBIEE is also based on. So we're using the ADF to bind and interact with business components in the browser and the mobile aspects, just as we do within OBIEE itself. Pretty much any of the browsers that are on the current smartphones right now and in the tablets are supportable with the current products that are available to us. So a little bit more about the browser versus the client. The browser, as I said, you got easily reuse of the application components because they're not tied to a specific downloaded application. They're not hard-coded in there. They're easily being reused. Less deployment infrastructure, which means you're not downloading, you're not having to worry about how is somebody going to be able to access this and get my application. It's basically everything's web-based, which means you're putting it out onto your application and your web servers. You also have a wider mobile device support. What that means is that if you've got a browser that supports your HTML, then basically you can pick up your application and your reports via the web and via your device itself. With the client-based, you've got more extensive integration because now you're basically creating an application that has to run on specific devices, which means you've got different operating systems out there, such as Apple's operating system versus, say, Android. You do have the native look and feel because you are integrating tightly within that device itself. And you also have offline access, and as well as your performance is better because everything's running locally versus having to interact with a web-based application. So, as I said, ADF is key to the mobile applications that we're going to be looking at. So what is ADF? As I said, it's the Application Development Framework. This is what is OBIEE 11G is currently developed from, which means anything that you see within OBIEE has a library of functionality within ADF. So you can basically, if you wanted, you could build your own complete 11G environment. But what's more important is that the mobile environment is also using these same components and can be built from this in the same manner. So if you are extending your OBIEE environment, then whatever you're using to extend that, probably JDeveloper, and you're going to leverage ADF, you can develop with the same tool set and the same skill set. A good way of extending OBIEE is using the action framework. You would leverage ADF in order to expand upon that and use that same development tool set to build your mobile applications as well. So with the ADF, what kind of features we're talking about is with the mobile, because we're dealing with ADF, we extend the power of the Fusion middleware, right? Which means, here again, all of our infrastructure, we don't have to have two different sets of infrastructure, one for mobile, one for our enterprise applications. We're using the same one. The IDE, again, if we're extending the OBIEE, we're typically going to use an IDE like JDeveloper. The mobile development would use the same IDE, using the same components, the same skill sets. Also, ADF has the same security functionality that OBIEE provides as well, which means you're able to leverage that security within ADF, or you can build your own mobile security because ADF does support all the security modules and functionality that Fusion middleware also supports. Now here we're talking about the MyFaces Trinidad components. These are similar components to the JSF faces. You have the same things, tables, buttons, links, anything that you would have within a development for a JSF faces also is supported within the Trinidad components. But these are more geared towards mobile development and mobile interfaces. So the latest ADF mobile is 11.1.2. This was introduced at the last Oracle Open World. And what's nice about this is, here again, we're using the same, being able to build once, deploy to multiple devices. This is something new that came out with 11.1.2. What we mean by that is before, with the 11.1.1.1 series, you had to tailor your application to the device that you were targeting. There were differences between, say, BlackBerry and other supported devices, which means you had to tailor and you had different skins that you had to deal with your style sheets. Now with the 11.1.2, the style sheets are more concise. There's actually just two style sheets, one for older supported devices, one for the newer devices, which means you don't have to worry about having developed multiple times based on if your organization or you're targeting multiple type of devices, your development is much simpler. The 11.1.2 also has the tight integration with the Fusion middleware from a security standpoint as well as from a development standpoint. And the 11.1.2 has all the features and functionality to be able to leverage and interface with all of the various smartphones out there. Now, with the 11.1.2, it's like, it sounds really nice, looks great. The problem I found with 11.1.2 currently, and this was as of last month, and I haven't looked recently to see if there's been any recent updates, but I'm not aware of any. 11.1.2 does not support SOA. So if you're doing development within a SOA environment and you also want to leverage mobile, you cannot go to the 11.1.2 yet. You still have to stay on the 11.1.1.5 series or older. Also, the BI extensions are not available within 11.1.2, at least not yet. The last version release for the BI extensions was 11.1.1.5. So why is that important? We'll come up to that. So the BI extensions. For those that you may have heard of these, a number of people have put blogs out about these. They are basically a library set. And some people will say, well, they talk about there's 4 BI extensions. There's actually 5. One of them typically that's not mentioned is the middle one around the ADF task flow, because it is centered and developed primarily for Web Center. So you typically don't necessarily would leverage it. So a lot of people will say, you only have 4, which is the composer, being able to view regions, the SOAP connection, and the logical SQL views. Why is this important to us? Why do we care about the BI extensions? So I'm going to show you what you can do with the BI extensions even in a mobile environment. So, of course, I'm using an Android emulator. So, as I said, I'm not playing around with the iPad. We're looking at Android. And you can see right here, I do have a BI application report with a simple report return button. And I'm looking at my system, which I've got running. This is running as a simulator within my JDeveloper environment. I am using 11.1.1.5 to build this, so you don't need the 11.1.2 yet to be able to build your mobile applications. So you can see I can come through, I can scroll across my screen with the smartphone and see my report as if this was the same report as it is on your dashboards. And in fact it is. This is not built using JDeveloper and being able to create pivot tables and pull in SQL statements. This is using the BI extension to build a mobile application. And this one is browser-based. This is not the client as you see with the iPad from Oracle's mobile app. This one here I've made as iPad, so basically I'm using the browser within the smart device, connecting up to my web application directly and pulling this information in. So I can click back over on the return, and so basically what I've done in here is I've got a navigation page in here, so it can take me into multiple reports. So depending on what you want to do. Now in this case here, I've developed this so that it connects directly up, but you can leverage the security so that your reports will take advantage of any data level security you may have in place on your BI side. What's nice about this also is that you're building reports using your answer or your analysis 11G environment and storing those out onto the catalog, so you have a single point of development, which means your mobile app developers don't need to know anything about BI in order to put these together. So your BI developers are doing just what you've hired them to do, is put those BI applications together. Now you're able to leverage those within a mobile application as well. So let's take a little bit farther look and see how simple is this really to put together. So here you'll see my JDeveloper environment, and just to show you what I've got in here is I basically have just the 3 pages. I've got my navigation page, which is a JSPX. I've got my BI page, which was the report that I showed you, which basically links over to the product analysis. And I've got a top customer page, which gives me a secondary report. And basically with the navigation, I can just make more reports, add them in, and make them develop. So very easily, I can change one page, add additional pages to my application, and I don't have to redeploy my application to my mobile devices. It would be readily available by just them coming into the browser. You could put additional security. You could put a login page into this as well, so that you're actually capturing the user's credentials, and put security around the various aspects within this to expand this out. I'm keeping this very clean, very concise, so you can see I don't have any kind of style sheets or anything else. It works within pretty much anything. I've also run this particular thing within the Kindle Fire tablet as well. The other aspect to think about when I talk about the Kindle Fire, it is running Android. It does have a web browser. I've connected up to our demo environment directly, which is something that the iPad could not do through its browser. With the Android, I can connect up directly via the URL and pull in my dashboards and reports just as they are. I don't even need to create a mobile application specifically for that. So there's one plug for the Android. So let's look at how do we bring some of these things in. If I look at my pages here, all right, you can see it's very simple. All I've got is some content in here, and I've got my return button. So there's really nothing else around this whatsoever. So how do we bring in the content? The only thing I've done is I'm leveraging one of the BI extensions, which allows me to pull in the presentation services directly. I make up a connection within this, and once I have my connection, so it's very simple. You can bring in your presentation services, set up where it's going to go, whether or not you want your credentials to be passed along or not coming into this. So it's very quick to set up. But once I do that, I'm able to see all of my catalog objects within this, within my JDeveloper, and that's basically just drag and drop the reports into your JSP page and leverage those within your application. So very quick, this is where I wanted to bring in the BI extensions to show you can very rapidly create a mobile application around your existing BI content, leveraging all of your security and leveraging everything you've already built. Now, there are some limitations with this, which I've not gone further into. Some of the functionality isn't all there, but if you're keeping your reports created with a BI environment, a mobile BI environment in mind, you'd create those reports a little bit more concisely to leverage those within there. So let's look at the strategy. We've seen some of the content, how we can build the apps. We know what kind of apps we can build, right? But now let's look at, from a strategy standpoint, what do we need to take into consideration when we're building this? One thing to keep in mind, today's world of mobile access, we need to always consider a mobile strategy as our overall BI strategy. You're not going to be able to get away from it. You can hold off on it as long as possible, but sooner or later you're going to have to face it, that it is coming. It's going to be more prevalent. So when we talk about a BI project now, and here I'm using BI in conjunction with OBIEE, we talk about that. We typically consider what is the ETL is going to be involved, the metadata involved, what reports are we going to put in place, any kind of security in, and how are we going to deliver this, whether it's dashboards, ad hoc, agents, which is your iBots. But now we also have to look at what is our mobile usage involved, right? So that takes into a number of factors and has its own challenges as well. So some of the challenges that we're going to be faced when we start talking about mobile and how we're going to support this, right? You've got a lot of different devices out there, right? What different hardware, different software APIs, what are we going to support, and how are we going to support them? Also, you've got screen sizes and some other factors that you're going to have to take into account. And so when you develop your mobile app, you want to make sure that you're going to not have to create, 20 of these things, one for every device that exists out there. You want one that's going to be an application that can be run on any device. You have different input methodologies, touch screens versus non-touch screens. A lot of the BlackBerries are still using the thumb wheels, right? How are those going to be handled versus a touch screen such as the iPhone and the iPad? Different carrier constraints, right? What's the carrier going to allow? You're dealing with all the mobile carriers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, even some of the smaller ones out there are having mobile smartphone devices as well. So you have to consider what are the carriers and what constraints may they be. What are you going to support? Also, as I mentioned previously, all right, you've got different hardware vendors. So if you're dealing with browser-based versus client, this really comes in from a client perspective. If you're dealing with a mobile client application, if you're going to run it on Apple versus Android, you have how are you going to code it and how are you going to maintain that code and make sure that both devices are supported. So what are some of the other factors involved when we're talking about from a strategy and mobile application? You got to look at the user community, right? Who are we going to support? What kind of devices do they have? And how many of them? Are we going to support everybody, or maybe it's only top-level managers? What's going to be the frequency of usage? If we put something together, is it really going to be utilized? Or is it just going to be another one of those, applications that somebody uses once in a blue moon because they've got it on their phone and they don't know what else to do at the moment? So is it going to be worth putting an application together and leverage the frequency? Is it going to increase productivity? So we don't want to just put something out there to say, hey, we've got an application out there, great. If it's not going to be used, if it's non-productive information, then it's really of no benefit, and all you've done is gone through the exercise of creating one. What's the cost benefit? With a mobile application, depending on if you go client, remember we stated, if you go on client, you're going to have more development time to put that together, which means also a higher cost because now you've got your developers involved and the time frame it's going to take to put this application and test it. If you go to the browser, you got a little bit more leeway there, but there's still a cost associated to it in putting this together, deploying it, and testing it. So what's the cost benefit of your application before you put it together? Then again, what type of application are we going to do? Are we going to do a mobile client app, or are we going to do web paging? Remember, if I stated on the Android with the Kindle that I can hit from that Kindle, I can hit my BI without an application. I can log directly in. The other thing is the access security, right? We have to have the same level of security that we have within our OBIEE environment. It means people only see what they're allowed to see. So depending on how you put things together and what you put together, you're going to have to consider your security as well. So the important aspect, the final aspect, is the security piece, right? Mobile devices, easily lost, stolen. All right? Ask Apple. It's already happened to them. So security has to be a top priority for a number of aspects, not only from the data, but you want to make sure, like I had stated, in my simple one, I hard-coded my information, so I didn't worry about a login page. You create an application, you're going to want a login page to prevent, should that device get stolen or that, you don't want just anyone opening up an application, a mobile app, and being able to get to your data. So you have some additional considerations over the simple thing I put together. As I stated earlier on, ADF does support security, right? Which means it has its own security module built within ADF that you can leverage anything that the Fusion middleware leverages. Integration with OID, LDAP servers. It has its own client access APIs that you can leverage. Plus, you can store credentials. So if you're dealing a mobile client app, you can store that credential information with locally as well and encrypt it. The other aspect which I showed is that you can leverage OBIEE as itself and inherit the credentials and the security that's embedded within that by utilizing the BI extensions. So, I showed you one which was the presentation service. The other one that I had been playing around with was the logical views. So with the logical views, I can create an ADF application or web app directly from using just logical SQL as if it was OBI, which runs through my metadata. So I'm picking up all of my metadata information, my security around the metadata. I don't have to redefine definitions. I don't have to support 2 sets of SQL anywhere. And I can build a complete application directly around that as well. So security important, but we've got it covered. There is things that can be done depending on what level you want to go to within your mobile application. So, final closing notes on this. All right, mobile requirements, they are expanding. The mobile devices, you're seeing it within the consumer industry, smartphones, everything's going smartphone, all kinds, as well as the tablets. Everyone's trying to get into the tablet market, which means you're going to have user base out there that's going to have a full flavor of whatever is possible, and you're going to have to think about what are the support options you're going to do. Now, the good thing is that the mobile options are also increasing and expanding to support these, such as we're seeing with 11.1.2, right? That has a big change from what 11.1.1.5 supported. Makes it much easier to build your mobile apps. We just need to wait for Oracle to get that so that it also supports everything else that we typically do around a JDeveloper environment. So, finally, we've got a number of references here looking at that you can take a look at to give you more information and more depth into some of the things that we've talked about. Configuring delivers, because you want to be able to say how am I going to deliver something to a mobile device, right? Something I did not specifically touch on, but that's kind of like one of those past things where we could always deliver information to our mobile devices. But now with delivers and with the 11G environment and smartphones, we can probably deliver a little bit more than what we were able to before. So also we talk about managing devices for our agents, ADF. Big thing about the ADF, that's going to be prevalent in any mobile app that you're going to create. And I threw in the configuration for the iPad for those that may be interested in that mobile application that Oracle puts out. And with that, I'm going to turn that back over to Christina. I think she's got a few announcements around various aspects. And I'm going to take a look at what kind of questions we've got going on and come back with some of those. Christina?
Okay, great. Thanks, Marty. Please remember to ask questions using the question panel on your control panel. At this time, we're developing the topics for our webinar series in Q1 2012. And you'll be receiving specific details via email on our upcoming calendar. And for the winners of the training tokens, you'll receive communications over the next few days. Now we'll move on to the questions, and I'll hand it back over to Marty.
All right. So I had mentioned, there was one question, I had mentioned that that you lose some functionality within the mobile application if you're using the BI extensions. So I brought in like the one, and I can show you here. So when I bring it in, if I click back into this report, the report I brought in basically was showing the hierarchical column from OBIEE. It showed where you can potentially expand out your report information. And it's just coming, this is a live environment, so it's bringing that back in. Let me show you what it's referring to. It needs to wake itself back up a minute. But what I'm referring to is like the expansion, right? The mobile device, the report itself does not show the expansion. It shows that it exists, but you cannot have the functionality to expand it out is not working there, right? Now that doesn't mean that you can't create it to do that. If you created your own application, remember all these components that you're seeing within OBIEE are created with the ADF, which means the functionality exists to be able to do it. But bringing in the BI extension, that functionality does not. So I can click on this until the cows come home, but it just won't expand any further. All right. Also, it looks like you've got hyperlinks, but there again, you'd have to build into your application to be able to leverage that information, that functionality. The BI extension is not bringing that in as it is. Now I'm hoping to build more in depth onto the BI extensions and leverage more of what we've got in here. But just so you know that some of these functionalities will not exist, but the idea is being able to leverage the report itself rather than having to recreate, as well as leveraging the security without having to rebuild that security. All right. Well, I do thank everyone for attending today, and hopefully this will give you a little bit more information and insight into what it's going to take to start building into the mobile application arena, and give you some ideas. And good luck to you all. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. And thanks again for joining us today. We'll be sending an email follow-up shortly with a link to the PowerPoint PDF of the presentation as well as the recording. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks again, and we look forward to working with you.